Hey everyone, it's Grant Winsauer, and
Jack Rody.
back here on the Blair Bear Claw cast, and another heartbreaking loss to the Cardinals, 29-9. We will break down the loss, give our standout players for the Bears, despite there only being very few. Worst game of the week, which we hate to admit, but it was the Bears game, and probably the most important topic after yesterday's loss. There has to be changes within the coaching staff, starting with the firing of Matt Eberflus and Shane Waldron. But before we get into that, we would like to remind everyone to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Bear Clawcast with Grant Winsauer and Jack Rody, and share with your friends so we can bring you more Bears content uh, and at the best chance possible. Let's just get the worst topic out of the way because all Bear fans are thinking it. Eberflus and this entire offensive coaching staff is gone at the end of the season. In all fairness, they shouldn't have been allowed on the plane ride home to Chicago. However, the McCaskey family have this moral code to never fire coaches mid-season. I think Ryan Poles needs to step up and change that narrative, but it probably won't happen. What are your thoughts on that, Jack? And why don't you go into how upset you were after yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty much just a disappointment in all phases of the game. Uh, I really thought we had a chance even up until the end of that terrible offensive first half, and then you get that back-breaking 53-yard touchdown run by DeMercado, which at that point I was pretty certain we had no more shot in that game, especially after how things went last week. I didn't think we'd have much fight left in us.
Uh huh.
But as far as the coaching changes go, you are right. I feel like every time a Bears coach struggles, we mention how the McCaskey family and the Bear organization have never fired a coach midseason. Well, we haven't won a Super Bowl in the last 40 years now, almost. So maybe it's time to make a change in how the organization is run because clearly the way things going, we're not some super class organization that coaches respect and want to come coach here because we haven't gotten any good ones. So I just think it's kind of ridiculous. And you see other head coaching firings going on across the league. Dennis Allen this morning. You had our old beloved OC Luke Getzey getting canned in Las Vegas today as well.
I
So
will admit I was not very surprised by that. I mean,
no, but it
the
just
thing
goes
that
to show
I'm
like
more surprised about is the fact that they're the Raiders are doing so bad. Well, I mean, when you factor in you don't have the quarterback, that's a big thing. But seriously, like I thought that uh, uh, Antonio Pierce was gonna turn around the Raiders organization because he did a decent job when he was the intern.
yeah,
Uh,
I don't know. I feel like the one thing I've come to realize in life is there are three things that are guaranteed: death, taxes, and the Cowboys and Raiders being overrated in the preseason. So
that's a
I
good
wasn't too
point.
shocked they've been a little bit subpar this year.
That's a good point. However, you know, we're gonna go. We're gonna go with a scenario that Poles makes the change and fires both Eberflus in the next few days. You know, the best person to be interim head coach would definitely be Eric Washington. He has run defenses before and called plays, and then I would make Thomas Brown play caller for the rest of the season. But it was reported today that the Bears will not be making any play calling changes for the rest of the season. So, I mean, I don't know what Matty Eberflus is doing. I'm pretty sure he smells his firing coming, but um, I just wish that we could get a little bit of something because I have to say there or I think me and Jack can agree on this. It's going to be hard to watch the remainder of the Bears schedule. and be happy because the second half of our schedule, when you have um, uh, the Packers twice, the Lions twice, the Vikings twice, the 49ers, and then the Seahawks, I don't see us winning any of those games. I mean, if we come out playing this poor, I it's going to be hard to watch. What
Yeah,
are
and
your
I really
thoughts?
don't. I just don't think it's a talent issue. It's clearly just that Coach Eberflus and the coaching staff have lost that locker room. You watch any of
Mm-hmm.
the Bears' star players in any of their media interviews, and it's clear that they have really no confidence left in their coaching staff. Like DJ
They
Moore, I
don't.
think DJ Moore gives great candid interviews pretty much every time he's behind a
Mm-hmm.
microphone, and just by the way that he has not really thrown his full weight of support behind either Waldron or Eberflus and their control over this team, I just think even though we have the talent to win some of these games down the stretch, I don't think we're going to be well prepared, and I don't think we're going to be well coached enough to beat any of these teams. Because you
Mm-hmm.
look at the coaches that we're going up against, Lafleur, uh, Dan Campbell, and Kevin O'Connell might be three of the six best coaches in the NFL, and we got to play them all twice. Like even if we had the players on the field to beat these teams, Eberflus will find a way to lose the game just simply by
Yes,
being
yes, he
outclassed by the guy
will.
on the opposite sideline.
And I mean, um, out of our remaining games, the two games I could see us winning are next week, and that still could be a game where it's hard fought win, and then I
Yeah, I
would
mean
say,
Drake May has been playing great. That's not a
and
guaranteed win.
and then the other game would be the Seattle Seahawks because Josh or no not Josh, Mike McDaniel, the head coach for the Seahawks now, started out good in the beginning of the year, but has lost, I think, all the games in the last month.
Yeah, it's something like that. I was never a big believer in the Seahawks. It's kind of can't say much as a Bears fan, but I've kind of been on the Seahawks or frauds bandwagon this year. I never really took them too
Yeah, I
seriously
mean,
as an NFC
dude.
contender.
I mean, I was shocked when they fired Pete Carroll.
Yeah,
I mean, the dude took them to two Super Bowls, won one, and I mean, had a great coaching record. And I mean, I at least thought the players respected him. I mean, I get that he was old, but I mean, Bill Belichick was yeah is only like a year younger than you, and the only reason that he's taken a year off is because he didn't like any of the coaching options.
hmm
Speaking of that, I'm just gonna throw this topic in there just for a little fun. Um, I could see him coaching the Raiders next year. I could see it because Tom Brady is, a minority owner for the Raiders, and he's gonna, be in the mix for choosing the quarterback. I wouldn't be surprised if he's in the mix for choosing the head coach.
yeah.
What
I can't wait to see a Las Vegas team comprised of Bill Belichick, Shadur Sanders, Tom Brady owner,
probably
and
who it's gonna be, but God, I gotta
That's
say,
I Shadur just screams Las Vegas to me. Like I just even if he's not the first quarterback taken, or if he is, I just think he ends up in Las Vegas no matter
I
what.
mean, it's going to be very interesting to see who's the first quarterback taken because there's no clear
There's
cut
no guy. No.
big guy. Um, so now let's get into the more fun topics. It was reported that the Bears are already looking in on head coaching replacements, and so far their list is three coaches that actually you, Jack, mentioned. Well, we both mentioned Ben Johnson, uh, but you predicted it on the spot. You said Ben Johnson, Cliff Kingsbury, and Bobby Slowick. It would be surprising if this is the end of the list come off season, but I think you have to hire one of these guys to get the most out of Caleb Williams. Um, if I was the Bears and they fired Eberflus when polls is interviewing candidates, I would bring Caleb in and say, Caleb, I want to bring in coaches that will maximize your talents. Which one do you like the most? Now I'm not saying that he should, say to Caleb, why don't you choose the coach? But say if I bring in this guy, do you think you will get the most from him, or who who will get you to be uh, a sure thing as our franchise quarterback? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we need to get an offensive guy. I really hope we don't see some random defensive coordinator from a middling defense thrown in the head coaching convos and we end up going with that guy. And I think the Bears may have been a little bit scared off of that just because of how poorly the Matt Nagy hire ended up
That's a
turning
good
out. Like
point.
it was good at first, turned it out a little sour, not a good end to the tenure. But the one thing I want to point out about all three of these candidates is they have the sole play calling duties with their respective teams right now. When Matt
Yes.
Nagy came over from Kansas City, obviously he'd learned under Andy Reid, but that's pretty much all he did. He learned under Andy Reid. He
hmm
wasn't the one calling play to play, down to down. And I think that's very important. We see a lot of these head coaches that a lot of these uh, coaches come from, the McVay tree, the O'Connell tree, the Shanahan tree, but they all are watching those guys call the plays. Johnson, Slowick, and Kingsbury all coach under defensive minded head coaches and have full autonomy over what they call. So I think those three are really, really the top three. And that should be what the list gets narrowed down to, assuming those guys are looking for head coaching
Hon-
positions next offseason.
Honestly, I mean, they won't. They will expand this list, but if if the top five, list when that list comes out uh is I mean the first three guys will be those three guys, but
Yeah,
if it's anyone that hasn't actually called plays in their for the respected team they're coming from, or if it's a
or
defense.
Mike Vrabel. I'd be open to hearing about that.
If he comes on, I would be okay with him as DC. I would be okay with him as DC. But if you hire someone that's not the top three guys, or a defensive minded head coach, maybe besides Variable because he has head coaching experience, um, I will become a Lions fan. I will become a Lions fan. I mean, I'm okay. I'm gonna admit something. I have always, been cheering for the Lions, in the past because the Bears stink and the Lions are one of the powerhouses now. And there's a lot of there's a few former players, in Detroit, in David Montgomery. I like Amon-Ra St. Brown. I would have loved to have him instead of his brother. Uh, but it's just hard to not be a Lions fan.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, it's even as a Bears fan, it is hard. Like I have much more ill will in my heart towards the Packers and the Vikings than I do the Lions. Just because the Lions are very similar to us, they were pretty bad for a very long time, and they built their organization up the right way with a lot of likable personalities. So
yes. So really, the point that we're trying to make with this section about the top three, head coaching options that are already on our list is the minute you hire one of them for head coach, you are also hiring your offensive coordinator. Yes, they may bring in an offensive coordinator to have the job title, but he won't call plays. And as long as they are better than any of the last two that we had, and can get Caleb to his last year at college stats, sign me up. I mean, it's just we have to. This is the quarterback that you have to get right because
it's
you.
it's it's all about getting the most out of your guys. Like I don't care if we don't have the guys this year and we fell a little short of the playoffs, but I feel like we do have the guys
We
outside of
do,
the
and we are
offensive
gonna
line.
fall
There's
way short.
We're
We
going to
do.
fall way short just because we're not getting the most out of our players, and I think that falls on the coaches more than anybody else.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, you know, it is good that there. Another reason that a lot of. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm kind of moving around the script here. A lot of people have been calling for Eberflus's head, and I mean, I think this last game should have been the nail in the coffin, and I honestly think, I mean, you know, Bears fans have wanted him gone for a while, but another reason that a lot of people want him gone is because of his record as the leading man. He is 14-28 overall as head coach since taking over in 2021, and that is bad. Don't get me wrong, but his road record is way worse. Uh, at 0-18, that alone is a fireable offense. What are your thoughts on that, Jack? And why do you think Eberflus is still employed when basically two head coaches have already been let go for having abysmal games yesterday?
Yeah, I do want to clarify that 0-18 record. We have won a couple games on the road under Flus, but they've been on Thursday or Monday nights, so those don't count.
Yes,
That's
those
our
are. I'm
Sunday
sorry.
record.
Those are on Sunday. Those are on
No
Sunday.
worries. No worries. But I really just think it comes down to the Bears are stubborn. And this is what I mean. Last year, going into that Commanders game on Thursday Night Football, we were 1-4, 0-4, and a lot of people said if they lose this game, Eberflus is gone. They blew him out that game. Eberflus sticks around. They make it to 7-10. He holds on to his job. At this point, if you've got several straight years where you can identify multiple games as this could be the final nail in the coffin, you better win this one. You're not a very good coach. You shouldn't be in that position every year where people are calling for your job. And it's not like we're talking about some like storied franchise where they're calling for like it's not like we're talking about Green Bay and they're calling for some guy's head because they finished like 9-8. We haven't even gotten close to that under Flus.
Correct. 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 So I mean, all great points. And I mean, I, I just want the off season to be here at this point, so we could get into the more exciting parts of the the podcast. The having. Now, I will admit, us as Bears fans, we buy into the hype a lot. So I will say this. I say this with a grain of salt. Don't buy into all the summer hype right at the beginning of the off season. Wait until training camp and see how everything is going in the middle of training camp, and then let's go into it where we're like, oh yeah, this is going to be the year where we beat the Packers, where we finally fight for the division, because I'm sure all Bears fans bought into the hype when we brought in all the offensive talent and Shane Waldron to, be the mastermind for Caleb Williams, and we we bought into it too quickly. The
Mm-hmm.
Bears looked like trash against the Cardinals and couldn't get anything going, and they gave up a 53-yard touchdown with 14 seconds to go in the first half, and that can't happen. I'm pretty sure that all Bears fans turned the game off at that point, or at least knew the game was over. I mean, I held out hope, but I'm like, this is done. Um, I mean, I have a question for the Bears coaches. Why weren't you trying to throw the ball down the field? The coaches are giving up, which has resulted to the players giving up. I thought we would be talking about a different game for the worst game of the week, but it pains me to say this. The 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 worst game of the week was our own. Nothing on offense was clicking, and we were down our most important players on defense in Montez Sweat, Kyler Gordon, and Jaquan Brisker. I mean, I will have a little bit more faith that we could win, you know, a couple games when those three come back. But I mean, Eberflus is gone, and that's all I'm looking forward to right now. What are your thoughts on that, Jack?
Yeah, I mean, There's really not. I feel like we've covered this game pretty in depth. There's not much more I can say. All I
Exactly.
really want to add is why the hell did we trade for Keenan Allen if we're just not going to use him? He
That is a
barely
good
gets
question.
targeted outside of the London game. We used a fourth round pick to acquire the guy. The only time I remember him doing anything in the game yesterday was dropping a pass on third and whatever
Hmm.
in Cardinals territory that
Hmm.
would have moved the chains for us and avoided that 53-yard touchdown to end the half. I just don't like it. Clearly seems like there is not a perfect marriage between what the front office provides the coaches with and how they use them. We paid Cole Kmet a boatload of money. He doesn't even have a target in the game yesterday. We trade a fourth
That's
round draft.
terrible. That's
We
terrible.
traded fourth round draft pick for Keenan Allen. He gets maybe let me. I have got the targets pulled up right here. He had
I think he
only
had
four
two.
catches, 10 targets. Like I mean, he's got 10 targets, but he's not converting on a lot of them. It's just a lot
Yeah,
of inefficiency from a lot of the guys
he's.
in the
I
team.
mean, I do not want to blame him,
No, it's
but
not hit. I mean, we're just our
he's
offense is awful.
playing like a. Why is that? He's playing like a 50-year-old. I mean,
Yeah,
and I again, that's not his fault. I mean, it's mostly the coaches, but it's it's terrible. Um,
yeah.
uh, Before we get into this next topic, we would like to take this opportunity to remind everyone to like, comment, subscribe, and share, so we can bring you the best Bears content possible, despite it mostly looking like every video from here on out will be sad. Um, but I have to remember to just reiterate
It's a,
the
it's
like,
it's a
comment,
week
and
it's a it's a week to week game. 2 years ago, Bears fans were saying we were making the Super Bowl this year, and now 2 weeks later, it's Armageddon. Things will change. It's not the end of the world. I just do want to remind people listening at home of that fact.
yeah. Um, so, with that being said, there were a few players who stood out against the Cardinals yesterday, or whenever you're watching this. You know, uh, my standout player for the Bears is Reddy Stewart. And if any of you watched our last podcast, I was curious how he would hold up against number one starters, and he had a Peanut Tillman peanut punch fumble on Marvin Harrison, so he held his own. I have to give Foles props. He can find undrafted free agent gems, just like Ryan Pace, but uh, I mean, I still believe that Poles is the better GM.
He
Um,
better be.
why don't you go into your standout player, Jack, for the Cardinals game? And because there were not many standouts, why don't you go into who yours was?
Yeah, so I was focused mainly on the offensive side of the ball in this game, and really the only standout that I had to choose from was Rome Odunze. Rome
Hmm.
had 5 catches on 7 targets for a little over 100 yards at 104. What I'd really like to see was, other than the deep ball that him and Caleb were able to complete on, that was a set play, a lot of Caleb's rollouts, which are pretty frequent because our offensive line is like non-existent. A lot of those plays where Caleb is moving to his right towards the sideline, it ends up being Rome who can find some space for him, and that connection has been pretty apparently growing the last few weeks. So I loved what I saw from Rome. I thought he played a great game, got into open spaces for Caleb, and I really hope that since the rest of the year, playoffs wise, those aspirations aren't there as much. I think we really need to hone in on focusing that connection between Caleb and Rome because Keenan will be gone after this year. I'm almost 100% certain of
I'm
that. I
almost
wouldn't be.
100% certain as well.
I mean, let me run this by you. Would you be opposed to them moving him in the next day or two and trying to recoup some draft capital?
Well, okay. So great topic to discuss. Great topic to discuss. But I believe, based on his production, that whatever we could get for him in the next 2 days would be less than we get for him if he were to sign somewhere else. Because I believe, I don't think it would be a third round draft pick unless it was like a 2 or 3 year deal. And with his age, I only could see him, signing a couple of 1-year deals for the rest of his career. But I still believe the comp pick at the end of the year would be higher than anything we could get for him in the next 20, 27 hours.
That's
Um,
fair.
but I loved the topic idea. If you were saying to me he had, 650 and 2 touchdowns on uh 40 receptions, and we wanted to move him just because of how abysmal the coaches are, sure, I would say give it a shot, but no way. I'd
Yeah.
take a comp pick at this point. Um, uh, so uh, I we didn't. I don't think we talked about this yet. So, um, the Bears are most likely, or not most likely, are going to have a head coaching search at the end of the year. I wish they would just get it over with and fire him now and start the search. I mean, they have, but you know, just if you fire your head coach mid-season, you get to hire your head coach early instead of waiting until the off season. And let's be real, if we hire Ben Johnson, there is a chance that he doesn't get hired till after the Super Bowl. Now that means he goes on less interviews, but he still will go on more interviews. And even though he wants the Bears job, let's just say hypothetically that another team that has a head coaching opportunity throws him more money than the Bears, because the Bears uh, uh, ownership, not the front office, but the Bears ownership doesn't pony up the money for head coaches, which better change. I mean, George McCaskey and any of the McCaskey's family, they've always been involved in the coaching hire. I think the Bears, uh, I think Ryan Poles and uh, Kevin Warren need to say to George McCaskey, you can be involved in this decision. Like, you can be in on the interviews, but you're not the leading decision maker on this hire. Kevin Warren, Ryan Poles, and anyone else that are above him are the ones that make that decision. What's your take on that, and how much of involvement should uh, McCaskey have, if any?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult thing because it is his money and his team and their money, their team. So I understand why they want to be involved. But at the end of the day, you hire guys like Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles to make those decisions for you because you are the owner of the team, not the general manager. They're not Jerry Jones. So ideally, they have zero involvement. Like you said, they can sit in on interviews and be there while the process is being deliberated. But I think there's pretty much 0% chance of them having no say on this decision. That's just not how they operate. And
Yeah, it's not
we've
it's not going
seen
to
that
happen, but
the
is
Bears
there?
don't change the way the organization is run ever. Like they don't. Maybe the names change and the faces change, but the way that things are run around there, it's like the White Sox. Until Jerry Reinsdorf is gone, things will remain the same around Hallis Hall as long as the McCaskies are still in charge of
Yes,
that team.
yes, that's the truth. That's the truth. Sadly. Okay. Uh, so our final topic before we sign off here. So there were a few injuries yesterday. Uh, First off, Andrew Billings looked to have torn his pec in the game yesterday, um, and he will most likely be out for the season. I mean, I have to say I don't think he contributed that much, so that's not the biggest issue. The biggest issue or the bigger issue that I see is uh, our right tackle Darnell Wright. uh, is getting MRIs for a MCL sprain. Now, I believe that the timeline for that uh, type of injury is a 2 week, a 1 to 2 week recovery time. I'm actually looking it up right now, uh, and it says minor injuries may take 2 weeks to heal. Mild MCL sprains typically take 4 to 6 weeks. Uh, More severe tears could take 2 months, and moderate to severe MCL sprains uh, or injuries take about 12 weeks to fully rehab through. I would assume that his injury is the minor 2 weeks to heal. If, you know, depending on how the MRI goes, because at the time of recording this, the MRI has not been established and no updates have been brought out. But it also is important to note that Matt Eberflus had a press conference today and it was not uh, broadcast. So, it could have been, you know, uh, uh, taken and, they didn't give us any updates on that yet. That's the one thing that I hate about uh, when press conferences aren't put out there. But I'm not watching another press conference till the coaching hire starts because it's all going to be bad. What are your thoughts on uh, Darnell Wright's injury, Jack?
Yeah, I mean, not much to comment on until we hear the severity of it, which we will get from the results of that MRI. But basically, all I can take away from it is if Darnell Wright's out for any extended period of time, Tevin Jenkins is out, I believe, again. And we've already had injuries to Ryan Bates. Nate Davis just doesn't know how to play football anymore. We have Braxton Jones out. Like, we are just getting decimated up and down the offensive line to a unit that wasn't that great to begin with. So I really hope that at least against New England next week in their mediocre pass rush, we can be okay. But man, I am not looking forward to the first time we see Brian Flores's crazy ass defenses thrown in our face, because it is going to be probably one of the worst offensive displays that
I
any
might
team
not
has
even
ever put
watch that
on.
game. I mean,
Like
I mean,
like the Viking, I just don't think we're going to be able to put anything together against the Vikings at
I
all.
we have to watch games so we can do this, but like we're reluctantly watching it because we're so depressed. I mean, no Bears fan has been happy this week or any game of this year, honestly. But maybe besides the Jaguar game or any of the, I mean, because all of the wins that we've had have been pretty ugly. So I'm it's not looking good for any Bears fans. So I mean, I remember this. So let's just talk about this real quick. So Matt Eberflus and the Bears coaching staff decided to keep Williams in for the last 2 minutes of the game because of they wanted him to get work and manage the 2 minute drill. I mean, when you're down by 20 points with 2 minutes left, there's no way in hell you're coming back unless you're the Flash and could punt return the touchdown and be wide receiver and stuff like that. So, and as a result of that, he tweaked his ankle. Now, I don't think that that's anything severe. I think he'll be fine. He said he'll be fine in his press conference last night. I read that on Twitter. I didn't watch the press conference. I was too depressed at the time. I'm sure all of Bears fans were. Uh, you know, so why would you keep your hopeful, future of the franchise guy in for the last 2 minutes when the last 2 minutes mean nothing?
There's no explanation. The announcers were calling it out during the game. If you watched the Tampa Bay Bucks versus Baltimore Ravens Monday night game a couple weeks ago, you saw Chris Godwin have his season ended and maybe even his career because he's dealt with a couple season-ending knee injuries and now
Mhm.
lower extremity injuries before. There's really no point. It's just another thing you can point to with the Bears coaching staff that it's like, what are you guys doing? And it sucks that us at home are able to see these things so clearly when the guys who are getting paid millions of dollars in the building aren't performing or executing up to the level they're supposed to be.
So I that will be our podcast for today. But beware, Bears fans. The rest of the season is going to be ugly after we play the Patriots next week. But also remember, it is always the darkest before it is dawn. We would be shocked if big changes aren't on the rise. Now, when I say on the rise, I mean 2 months from now, sadly. With that being said, we would like to remind you, everyone, to like, comment, subscribe, and share so we can bring you the best Bears content possible. And I'm sorry, Bears fans, but these, the next 2 months of videos are going to be quite sad in terms of how the season could play out because we play the hardest teams right now. This is Grant Winsauer, and
Jack Rody.
signing off for today. Have a great week, and we will see you all next Saturday for our Bears versus Patriots preview game, which we will have my good cousin Max on, who is one of the biggest Patriots fans I know, and he will be very excited to talk about the Bears versus or the Caleb Williams versus Drake May sweepstakes. Um, you know, hopefully because of the talent difference that each team has, the Bears can squeak out a win. Um, so that's all I have. That's all we have for you. Have a great week, everyone, and bear down, everyone. All right.